What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thomas Galgani Show. I'm your host, Thomas Galgani. I almost said good morning there, but I realized that would actually be disingenuous because it is Monday evening right now, and every podcast episode goes out on Tuesday mornings. And on top of that, of course, I don't know when you're going to listen to this, so just figured I'd say what's up. And today, I'm just going to get right into it. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I started into filmmaking, kind of how I got into it. Started out with photography. I'll cover that a little bit in a second. One of the reasons why I wanted to briefly talk about this and my story and kind of breaking into the industry and kind of the art form, I see it more as like, getting into the craft, so to speak, than, any particular industry. But anyways, the reason I wanted to talk about that is because I'm going to start interviewing more, sitting down and talking with more filmmakers, more cinematographers, videographers, stuff like that, because I've decided that this is something that, I am really passionate about and I want to keep doing it. And I figured, why not just kind of bring more people on that have that sort of background. And one of the things I like about cinematography, filmmaking in general, is it really does delve into the human condition. And what I've been hearing a lot of people mention lately is pretty fascinating is just how young of an art form cinema is. If you look at other things, even that cinema is involved in, like acting, for example, writing, stuff like that. And then, then the other art forms like painting, everything that's been going on for so long, right? But cinema is much, much newer. And that's a pretty exciting thing. I think Christopher Nolan said that when he got one of the Oscars, about what an exciting time this is, to be catching the wave, this wave at such a young point of the art form. So, there's a lot I can go on about that and why I like filmmaking, movies in general. Ever since I was a kid, I've always loved movies. It's still to this day something that my family and I, we will quote movies kind of endlessly. We'll just blindly, kind of refer to a movie that we know pretty well. It might not even be that great of a movie, but if it's special to us in some way, we'll quote it. And that's kind of a fun thing that we do. I used to be known at times to be like really into the, like, oh, he knows every movie or whatever, but now that's not really the case. Partially just because I have a son and I'm busy. I feel like I'm busy. Everybody's busy, obviously. But I'm also just not as interested in a lot of the movies that come out. I miss a lot of the character acting, the movies that had a lot more heart to it. And it looks like we're kind of slowly getting back into that, which is good, that cinema's moving more towards that again, finally, after all the Marvel series, stuff like that. The special effects, nothing against those kinds of movies, but it really just isn't something that interests me. That's not why I like movies. I like it when it makes sense, the action, special effects, and stuff like that. So anyways, without going more into what I love about movies, filmmaking, and everything, about the art itself, right? But getting specifically into my story, that was something that I was always into as a kid, right? And as you know, as I've mentioned before, I've talked about this, that I started teaching Russian. I was a foreign language professor and instructor. I guess technically started out as an instructor and then built my way up, through grad school, and then, was technically a professor, I guess, but mainly for the U.S. military. And, I had basically what I considered a dream job. I loved it. It was so incredible. I was teaching full time and teaching students in small groups. And these were the most motivated students that I could have ever asked for. The environment was great. My coworkers, colleagues, not just the people that I taught alongside with, but other, kind of the research professionals that I was working alongside, language, the pedagogical training that we received was amazing, which pedagogy, by the way, is just a fancy word for teaching. So all of the different methods of getting, basically transferring information from one person to the other, right? And kind of packaging it up in a way that makes sense and that's applicable for whatever job that they have. I loved that. That was my job. And, after I was already about a year into it, let's see, I'm trying to think of the timeline. I was already teaching full time for a little while. I'd finished my, most of my certifications and stuff like that on the job at this institute. And then COVID happened, everything shuts down. And, they were still teaching in person, certain things, control groups. But after a while, everything just went online. And honestly, without going into detail, I can't talk about, who, where teaching was happening or how many people were online, stuff like that. But the reality was there was a lot more downtime for everybody involved than I think was initially planned. And we not planned, we had a pretty solid strategy going into it. But what I want to sorry, I got distracted. There was a lot of noises outside, but when COVID happened, there was a lot more downtime, and I basically got into photography. It was kind of a combination of both photography and video, but I stumbled across a famous YouTuber named Peter McKinnon. And Peter, shout out to you, man. This is, you were one of my favorite YouTubers ever. I thought your stuff was super captivating right from the get-go. I think I discovered you through somebody else's channel, ironically enough. And then I went to yours and I was like, man, this guy is super talented. Like, he's funny. He knows all the technical stuff, but he breaks it down in a way that's really digestible for his audience. And he clearly had a huge following, that was visible from the start, but that was honestly the beginning, was with me in photography and video. And I started doing that as a hobby on the side, just a way to get outside. And as cliche it sounds, I was kind of craving colors and nature and just being outside and, people too, of course, but that was really just a way for me to get outside and take photos regardless of whatever was going on. So I didn't need anybody else to do it. Things like street photography, for example, a lot of people will debate that, for it to be true street photography, you have to have people involved. I don't know anyways, I'm not going to get all into that, but basically I was taking photos of anything, like mainly landscapes, but some architectural stuff, nature, whatever, you name it. And I was really into learning the manipulations of the camera, and I was doing everything manual, except for focus was probably the one thing. I kept using autofocus for a lot of it. But then I started even getting more comfortable with manual, and you have, shutter speed, ISO, aperture, learning what different focal lengths do to an image. Just, it was so cool to me, really fun. And I shot my first wedding. I started getting into weddings because it was just, I saw that, hey, people are actually making money doing this. And so I started doing that while I was teaching full time. 2 years ago, it was a little over 2 years ago that I shot my very first wedding, and it was super nerve-wracking. A lot of different things happened on that day that, just kind of showed me what it's like working in the wedding industry that I wasn't prepared for, as far as, there are so many different aspects to it. You have the DJ, you have the coordinator, you have the photographer, you have all of these different things. So like any image that you might have in your mind, any vision, isn't necessarily going to go the way that you hope it will or that you see it will, like on the day of. And another guy I started following on YouTube was Eric Floberg. who is an extremely talented filmmaker, and he's also super into running too. He runs like marathon at like 2:30 pace or something ridiculous like that. Really inspirational guy. But and that was the first person I came across that had specifically wedding filmmaking material. And there was something captivating to me about it, where you can shoot these weddings in a way that's really creative, that's going to be really, authentic to the couple, right? Like if you know something about them that's really special to them, you can kind of capitalize on that and really try to showcase that in a way that is meaningful to them. So it's really just about like finding meaning. Maybe there's a speech that happens that is, really special, kind of, and unexpectedly emotional, stuff like that. And that's the other thing is audio. You have to get good audio. You have to make sure everybody's mic'd up, at least the people who have the main speaking roles, stuff like that. And, it was exhilarating for me, and so I started doing some more jobs, kind of commercial work here and there, sort of freelancing basically, that these jobs were pretty fun. A lot of like sports type of videos, for different gyms, even like some personal brand stuff or e-commerce brands. But primarily, to be honest, the wedding side has been the most lucrative, and I'm not even afraid to admit that, just because I think that it kind of should be that way for a lot of people, because this is a really big day, and it's a blast because it's basically like a party. That was one of the things I liked about bartending, too, is you're there working, but it's also a party at the same time too. And so it's just a way of kind of balancing those two things. You have the different aspects, all the different dimensions. You have, like the technical aspect, the person who's heads up about what's going on. And then you also have the aspect of like wanting to have a good time. So, and then there's like the filmmaker side, which is maybe you're shooting things with the edit in mind, all kinds of different things there. So, long story long here, that my job, teaching foreign language, to military professionals, military linguists, was my dream job at the time. And I honestly never saw myself leaving that. But filmmaking has always been something that's kind of intrigued me, that I've always had this idea of like, man, if I could make a movie one day, that I'm really passionate about, like write it and then direct it, something like that would be really meaningful to me. Because I've always loved movies, and I think it's a great way to also get to the hearts and minds of, people. I don't know why I use that. It's kind of a military expression. I guess because in the context of teaching military students, but just getting, to the hearts of people, right? So like transferring a message, communicating a message that's really special to you, that is going to resonate with a lot of other people, I think is really special. And it's also fun, it's entertaining, brings people together. Even if, less people go to the movies now, at the very least, just having something to do that is at home, that's it's cool. Now the focus is filmmaking, and I want to put all of my energy into that, even if if it's a lot of commercial work, that's meaningful to me as well, because it's still storytelling. Wedding videography is still storytelling. And wedding filmmaking, there's a whole trend out there of people who will sometimes say that like wedding photography or videography is not creative. I, respectfully disagree with that. I can understand that perspective. I see where that comes from, because a lot of times it becomes the same thing, like a sparkler exit, and then before you have the first look, vows, stuff like that. But if you think about it, I mean, like every single one of these couples, they have a different kind of, there's always something different with everybody. And I try to capture that, try to have fun with it. And to me, that's what it's all about, is that human side of it. And I think that's what I'm going to close out on is basically just that's the most important thing. If any of you happen to be listening to this and you have any interest in filmmaking, I would just highly recommend that you really study people more than the technical side. Obviously, you got to get the basics down. Shoot in 24 frames per second. If you're doing slow motion, you can go ahead to 60. Shoot in manual. Don't shoot in auto. But try to control as much as you can while thinking about the human side more than all the technical stuff. I'm going to end on that just because I feel like that's an important point. And when we're telling these stories, there should always be a point behind it, and like, what are you trying to convey? And so I think all of us are storytellers in some way. That just happens to be the medium of my choice for right now, both professionally and personally, something that I'm super passionate about. And, when we do that, we also want to ask ourselves that one question is like, what is the one thing you think you would do if money wasn't a factor, something that you had to take into consideration? What would you do, And if you can find a way to make money doing that, I saw that there was a way to make money doing videography and filmmaking. So I kind of started doing it on the side. Now I'm doing it full time. And so yeah, I'd be curious to know, if you asked yourself that question, what would that be? Regardless of the whole storytelling, filmmaking stuff, there's another thing to think about is, make sure you're doing something that you enjoy. And, yeah, I think I'll leave it there for today, guys. Again, as always, shoot me an email. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave me a comment, or Instagram. If you happen to find me on Instagram, the handle is just my name, Thomas Galgani. Shoot me a direct message or a comment. I read all of them myself. I don't outsource anything to AI or anything like that. And yeah, looking forward to the next week, guys. All right, take care.